Hi, Jen.
Hi there.
Thank you for joining us and being part of this artist interviews series.
So I'm Jen Hamilton, and for 12 years I lived in Regina, Saskatchewan. I'm now living in Western Quebec. I came to Regina originally to teach at the University of Regina in their intermedia program. My time in Saskatchewan was fabulous. I have to say one very interesting thing, and I haven't really looked into this very deeply recently, but the the surrounding uh, environment and the landscape of Saskatchewan and of Regina in particular influenced my production, my art making. Like it really um, had an effect on what I wanted to do. And I'm not sure what that was about actually. If it was, if it's the light, there's a I know it maybe sounds cliche, but there's a particular light in Saskatchewan, and the elevation has something to do with that. I think it's something like 1,500 feet above sea level. And every time that I come back to visit, which I do, um, it's astounding how apparent that is. Right now, I'm only about 60 feet above sea level where we live in Western Quebec, and it's different. So that might have something to do with it. I don't know, and then of course the landscape itself, and we can talk about that too because this particular artwork that is on display really does talk about that very
Yes,
distinctly.
definitely. And I
So,
think that's a good segue for me to share with you some of the footage of the piece that we have documented
okay.
on video here. And and maybe like just let you view with you, and maybe you can walk us through
Oh, sure.
that piece.
Oh, there it is. Look at that.
Yeah, it's such a
Yeah.
beautiful piece, and I think like it's really uh, representative of what you have just shared about the influence of the Regina landscape and the lighting too.
Sure. Sure.
Um,
You know, I'm curious to know what the landscape. So the photos on the wall, they were taken at East Victoria, like East Vic, when there was a bunch of construction and the houses seemed to be marching forward. And and I chose that spot because it seemed to me a real strong delineation between cityscape and countryscape.
right.
And the table itself is a landscape table, and the plates on the table are neighborhoods or even fields, different fields. And I used MDF, which I know is not the most robust material, and it's difficult to work with. It's very heavy, but I really like that material because it's got that color, and it's very much like a like grain compressed. It's got texture to it that way, or not texture, but a kind of color that I really, really liked. I have to admit that since working with that for this piece, I kind of vowed off working with it as a material because it's so heavy and it's very crystalline. Oh yeah, okay. So here are the pictures,
Right.
and that's this distinct location that I suspect doesn't exist anymore. You see there the edge of the houses all lined up, and they're a precipice between the two places, the landscape and then the cityscape, and then this kind of swirl that is I don't mean to sound obtuse or even there is a reference actually, strangely, in my mind. I mean, it's not apparent, but when I took the picture, I thought of the spiral jetty, Smithson's spiral jetty. It's not So there is that kind of jettison of landscape. It's not meant to be specific in that sense, but that's why I like that kind of swirl of the dirt from the contractors. So
Yes.
there's this comparison. It's kind of a proclamation, now that I think of it, a statement that says, here are two things, here are two different states. And also of interior and exterior, because you've got this interior piece of furniture. It's not a very functional piece of furniture, but it's like a representation of an outside space. And then you've got these plates. And I really did actually want those photographic plates to be just images themselves. That's why they're on stainless steel. They're supposed to be really thin, and they're just supposed to be the image themselves, no frame, nothing to go with the image, just plain image.
Yes. So for these plates, like where do you get the design from? Like, did you look at a municipal map and got inspiration from that?
That's a good question. No, actually, these are not actual mapped spaces. Now that I have to admit, I forgot that there was a void in the center, and it's as though the center's being stretched out. And I suppose, making a bit of a commentary too on the donut effect. I don't know if that's so much a case anymore in Regina, but for a while there, it was as though everything was being built up around the city, and it was, the center was being evacuated. That happens to a lot of cities. But I think now we're seeing a return to a central, or maybe neighborhoods, not so much a central location. That's maybe antiquated too as an idea, but an idea that urban settings and collective can be located in a center. And then the plates itself, because the piece is called Outskirts, and that swirling that I mentioned before about the dirt and the kind of swirl and the turning. And again, it happens all the time. You're working on a piece and you've got these dialogue, at least I do. I've got these dialogues going on in my head, and it's almost like agreements that I make with myself. And I say, well, okay, this is why I'm doing this, and this is why I'm doing this, and okay, I'm going to make this happen this way, because you're always making decisions, and it's kind of an internal dialogue. In fact, most of the time I don't really know I'm doing it, and then I make an agreement and say that's going to work. That's how it's going to be, like a formula or a kind of connection. And so there's the void in the center of the table. There's all these plates that are joined together. They kind of flop down. There's some of the plates have arborite, that kind of colored plasticized surface. It's found on countertops, but not all of them are like that. So that's kind of a nod towards an era when countertops were space-aged and modern, and that's the one thing about Regina. I remember when I first moved there. I moved there in 1997, and I was maybe not astonished, but I was really excited about a lot of the architecture and a lot of the houses. There's a real modern bungalow feel to not all the houses, but some of the older ones. And I guess they're not really that old, but I really, so you can see here, there's that arborite, that turquoise color. So again, those are the kind of agreements that you make, and so I was just pooling those together. They don't really they're not conclusive. They don't make an actual statement like A, B, and C. They're a melange, like a collection of parts, and then for me it's important that there's play, and kind of maybe sometimes a bit cheeky too. So it's just a kind of invitation, because I don't really set myself apart from the viewer. I don't want to ever do that. I don't want there to be this sense that I'm the all-knowing or the all-seeing or the one that has all the cards in my hand. I want the viewer to actually have all the cards and have all the say and have all the play. And I'm just trying to set an agreement and say, look, here, what do you think of these parts? And put them out there for a bit of play.
And did you build everything from scratch, or the table was a recycled frame of a?
Oh no! So this is a complete construct. The frame itself, it's really heavy. So there's a frame. There's a main table frame, and then so that's almost an armature, and then the plates come off of the armature. And are sort of weighted. So yeah, I made each piece. So when it came to constructing the work, it was very organic. So I had the middle frame built, and then worked on just adding pieces and standing back, really like putting a composition together like you would with a painting, just with the different shapes and sizes. And then the table itself is actually, there's actually a ratio, I forget what it is now, to tell you the truth. And then the plates themselves, like the two photographs, they are just, large format, full color, laminated onto the stainless steel. Again, I guess there's a kind of, well, I keep referring to space aged or modern. That there is a feel in the work about that, and a kind of living room sense too. That you would have this dining room table, and that you might have these images displayed in your house in a real kind of cool modern setting. And so there's that part of it too, a kind of fantasy of what somebody's household would be like if this was the setup in their dining room. So even the idea of coming to the table and it being set up in this manner is sort of is an indication too of a time period. I'm not sure if people do that so much anymore, where they have a very distinct artwork or distinct set, of imagery plus a table. I mean, of course people do that, but do you know what I mean? Like it's almost like a design magazine setup. It's kind of artificial. So there's that quality to it as well. But really, I really have a strong desire in making work to have a connection with the audience and let it be theirs, and I'm sort of the guest or the suggester. I sort of suggest, and then I'm not demanding that it be a certain way, this way only. That I want it to be an exchange. Or I'm out of it though. It's really the viewer's job after I'm done with it.
Yeah, and I think like after hearing you shared all these kind of like considerations with the piece, I find the piece very like aspirational.
No,
right?
good.
Like, as if like it's like your love letter to the city, kind of like trying to see it, bigger and hoping.
It is a bit of a love letter. Yeah. There was something to. I remember Tim Long mentioning this to me. He said something along the lines of, "Well, didn't you know that Saskatchewan is the tabletop province?" or something like that. He said that to me. I remember when I was building it, and I didn't know that. Or maybe I did know it and I had forgotten, but I really felt I didn't know that. And I was like, oh no, I didn't know that, Tim. So I may not have made the piece. I suppose, you're trying to talk about the sublime, and again, going up and even in an airplane and seeing the prairies and the different distinctions of land, is there's something in that, and something maybe a little bit devastating because of what it symbolizes in terms of our foray into the landscape. But it's also beautiful too. So I think sublime is a really good word, because it talks about both those things, both the kind of grotesqueness and maybe the devastation plus beauty as well. It's kind of like this really troubled place. In any case, Tim said that to me, and I was like, oh, gee, I didn't know that. But I'm making the piece anyway. So, but I'm glad. But then I was kind of happy too. So I'm, oh, well, sure, of course it's called that. That makes sense to me. So, there's a response there, maybe just intuitively, of what a place is like. And I don't know if folks in Regina or maybe even Saskatchewan feel strongly about the landscape. Of course they do. But what I mean to say by that is, I know that there might not be a profession that it's really excellent. And I'm just trying to say, as a bit of an outsider, like, it's totally excellent as far as I can tell. I really like it. And here it is. So there might be some problems with it. But in any case, maybe for instance, maybe we need to have some plates in the center of the table, like we were talking about earlier. But just in terms of the beauty of it, there's nothing like it. And I don't have that here at all in where I live. So it's something to be grateful for if you have it, if you've got that light, if you've got that view,
Yes.
that flat, that kind of distance view. There's nothing like that except for maybe at the ocean. I can't think of anywhere else. Anyways.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that, I think like folks here in Regina, especially those who grew up here, or have a strong connection with the city, would definitely appreciate what you had just said.
Oh, good.
And
I'm glad.
And I think like they will notice more of those subtleties, and hopefully the newer folks who are coming into the city and settling here, will over time also share the same appreciation.
I hope so. I truly hope so.